It's time for the good, the bad, and the ugly on KCMO Talk Radio. Now on 95.7 FM.
Well, the good from the weekend, Seth Lugo, who some perceive to be on the trading block for the Kansas City Royals, has finalized a 2-year, $46 million extension. Now, why do I bring that up? Well, it's not just because it was a good story coming out of the weekend if you're a Kansas City sports fan. It also shows that the Royals are not going to be sellers here at the trade deadline. They're 8.5 out in the division, but more importantly, they're 4 games out of the wild card. And as the backdrop here for the Royals continues to be, where are they going to play baseball come the next decade? Is it going to be North Kansas City? Is it going to be the Asperia campus in Overland Park? Is it going to be downtown in Washington Square Park? If you're the Royals and you are potentially asking the taxpayer to get involved in funding your baseball stadium, you better have a halfway decent product on the field.
Yeah.
Right, John? You had a team in the playoffs last year, and now you can't be sellers 1 year later. And to John Sherman's credit, Seth Lugo at 35, 2 years, $23 million per year. That's real money. That's not chump change, so I give him credit for that.
His name got floated because he's an asset, and it's nice to know we're keeping our assets and hanging on to those at this point.
Yes, and he is the prime example. Lugo is the prime example of a guy who a team would want to sell at the deadline. He's 35, his best years probably in the past, but you know what? This guy can help them win for the next couple of years when they have every right to believe they'll be a playoff contender. And this is really good news. And the stadium story is kind of the backdrop to this whole story as well. Now, the bad from the weekend. I've got to give Josh Hawley some jazz here because Josh Hawley took an idea from President Trump and sent it into overdrive, and there's nothing about it that I like. I'll do more of this and explain more of this coming up next hour. But Trump said more or less off the cuff, as Trump oftentimes does, that because the tariffs are bringing in all this money to the U.S., he is exploring the idea of a rebate check for certain Americans. So Josh Hawley shares this video on X over the weekend and says, I will introduce legislation in the U.S. Senate to send a rebate check to every working person in America. And I like Josh Hawley. He's a friend of the show. But every once in a while, we all swing and miss. And this is a major swing and a miss for Josh Hawley. He tries to craft this conservative, populist, Christian lane. I don't think the lane really exists. This like Bernie Sanders with a faith element to it lane that Josh Hawley's trying to carve out. And not only do I think that lane, I don't think the lane exists, but more importantly, there's a lot of crappy ideas in this lane. And this is just one of them. We're $37 trillion in debt. We're running $2 to $3 trillion annual deficits. We're 5 years removed from stimulus checks that sent inflation to 40-year highs. And you think that rebate checks using tariff money for basically direct payments to American taxpayers is the answer here? The dollar has had its worst year in 50 years. It's getting devalued by the day. The last thing we need to do is have the federal government send out checks to people and mask them as rebate checks, air quotes, for, air quotes, working people in America. How do you even define a working person? What is a working person? You know, if you just shrunk the government, you'd help working people a heck of a lot more than sending them a rebate check. It is a classic government example and idea of I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Ronald Reagan called those the scariest words in the American language, right? A classic Reagan line. And that's frankly what Josh Hawley's going for. We screw all these things up, but don't worry. When push comes to shove, we got a little check for you here because we're going to help you. No, you're not. Leave us alone. Get the debt down. Figure out how to balance a budget for once, and you'll help working people far more than sending them a rebate check for God knows what. And last but certainly not least, in the ugly from the weekend. Wyandotte County Sheriff's Deputy Elijah Ming died in the line of duty. This after 38-year-old Sean Harris opened fire on Ming and a KCK police officer after they were responding to a call for help from a female who was moving out of a residence on Saturday afternoon. And the KBI, Kansas Bureau of Investigations, said that the 38-year-old Harris, who has a long criminal history, had just been released from prison in December of 2024. The KBI said Harris, who was struck during an exchange of gunfire with the police, was released from the hospital at about 11:30 in the morning yesterday, transferred to the Johnson County, Kansas Adult Detention Center, and was booked for capital murder of a law enforcement officer. But this is another tragedy in a long list of area law enforcement folks who have died in the line of duty here in the Kansas City area. Whether it's Officer Mulbauer in KCMO, Officer Oswald in Fairway, Officer Vasquez in North Kansas City, Officer Madrid Evans in Independence, and Officer Mosier in Overland Park over the last few years. Now we sadly have to add Elijah Ming to that list.